I've taken bullets for billionaires. I've wrestled stalkers off celebrities in hotel elevators. I've seen enough cocaine and ego behind closed doors to fill a damn memoir. But nothing ever got under my skin like the footage of Marissa Vellum watching her own daughter get kidnapped, calm as a damn yoga instructor. Name's Cal Mason. I'm 49. Former Marine. Spent the last 2 decades in private security, mostly out of LA. I was never the flashy kind. Never wore designer suits or talked about tactical superiority, like some of the new guys. I kept my mouth shut and got people home alive. That used to be enough. 2 years ago, I took a job protecting a teenage girl named Tessa Vellum. Her mother, Marissa, ran one of those AI companies you read about when Congress starts asking where the hell our privacy went. Cold woman. Barely blinked. Said her daughter had been getting threats online. Said she wanted discreet but effective protection. I was subcontracted through my old agency. Good pay. Quiet gig. Or so I thought. The house was massive, glass, steel, hidden cameras everywhere. But the vibe was wrong. Tessa barely talked. When she did, she mumbled, kept her eyes down. Marissa treated her more like a brand asset than a child. No hugs. No softness. The girl could have been a houseplant for all the attention she got. Still, I kept my head down and did the job. Logged hours, scanned perimeters, filed boring reports. Then one night, Tessa vanished. I was posted out front. Nothing unusual. No alarms. No motion trips. When I did my round, her bed was empty and her window was open. But there were no prints. No signs of a struggle. Like she evaporated. I thought I'd failed her. I was sick with it. My agency lawyered up within the hour. Cops treated me like a suspect. Marissa? She cried on TV, said she couldn't believe this happened. Called me a trusted professional. Said all the right words. But a week later, I saw the footage. It wasn't part of the system I had access to. It was from a hidden feed, one only she had the login for. I found it on a backup drive buried in a folder labeled miscellaneous_7. It showed Tessa being led out of the house by a man in a white mask. No struggle. She looked dazed, compliant. And in a corner of the feed, just for a few seconds, you could see Marissa watching it all from another monitor. She wasn't screaming. Wasn't running. Just watching. And here's the part that still makes me want to put my fist through a wall. She smiled. It started quiet, like most long cons do. The first meeting was in a boardroom with frosted glass and silence so thick you could feel your own breath. Marissa didn't shake hands. She nodded once, opened a sleek leather folder, and said, "You come highly recommended. I want my daughter protected. She's going through some things." That was it. No elaboration. No warmth. Just some things. Tessa wasn't at the meeting. I didn't see her until the first day on site. She didn't meet my eyes. Thin. Hair down in her face. She had that posture you only see in kids who've learned to flinch before being touched. She didn't look scared, exactly, just resigned. At first, I chalked it up to teenage mood swings and too much screen time. Rich kid problems. I'd seen it before, bored, isolated, raised by staff. Parents who substitute private chefs for affection. I told myself I wasn't here to psychoanalyze. My job was to keep her safe. The daily routine wasn't complicated. I monitored the perimeter, rotated patrols with another guard named Rico, young, chatty, ex-cop, and reviewed camera feeds twice a day. The house was covered, visible cameras, hidden ones, motion sensors in the garden. State of the art. But the human element felt off. Tessa had a private tutor who came twice a week. The guy acted scared of Marissa, like he'd been slapped before. A housekeeper named Eula barely spoke above a whisper. Staff turnover was high. By the third week, 3 people had been let go. All quiet firings. Marissa didn't like questions. I once asked if I could reposition a camera near the pool gate. She said, "I don't pay you to decorate my home, Mr. Mason." Smile like glass. Still, there were moments where things felt normal. Tessa would sketch in the garden. I never saw what she drew, but the concentration on her face made her look almost peaceful. She liked to feed a stray orange cat that came by some evenings. I started leaving food out when she wasn't looking. One day, she surprised me by asking if I'd ever shot someone. I told her the truth. Yes. 3 times. All justified. I still see their faces. She nodded like she understood more than a 17-year-old should. Looking back, I think that was the first time she saw me as something other than just another suit. And I think it's the day Marissa started watching me closer. The night she disappeared didn't feel different at first. I remember that clearly. That's the part that eats at me, how normal it all felt right before everything broke. It was a Thursday. I was doing a perimeter check, same route I'd done 100 times. Trees still. Sky clear. The sensors by the south fence had tripped earlier from a raccoon, nothing serious. Rico was off that night, so I was solo. At 10:43 p.m., I passed the back patio, looked up at Tessa's window. Lights out. By 11:15, I noticed the silence. Not just quiet, silence, like the kind that presses against your ears. I headed upstairs to do a hallway sweep. Her door was cracked open. That was unusual. She usually locked it. I knocked. No answer. I opened it slow, hand instinctively resting near my belt, old habits. Her bed was empty. Comforter pulled back, like she just stepped out. Window wide open, breeze coming in. I leaned out, nothing. No ladder, no rope. No noise. Motion sensors hadn't picked up anything. I ran the house. Basement, garage, guest room. Nothing. By midnight, I had every screen on the surveillance wall pulled up. No sign of her leaving. Not through the front, not through the side gates. Not even a flicker of motion where the window faced. It made no damn sense. I called it in. Dispatch asked if I was sure she hadn't run away. I said she didn't seem the type. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure. She was quiet, withdrawn. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I'd been too focused on the technical and not the emotional. I texted Marissa, protocol. No response. At 12:41 a.m., she finally called me. Her voice was flat. "Where is my daughter?" I told her we didn't know yet. That the systems were showing no breach. That I was reviewing footage. She didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't ask what I'd seen. She said, "You were hired to protect her. I expect answers by morning." Then she hung up. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not because I was scared. Not even because I felt guilty, which I did. But because in her voice, I didn't hear fear. I didn't hear panic. I heard performance. I kept reviewing footage. Over and over. Hours of static cameras. Then I noticed a 6-minute gap in the feed from one hallway, right outside Tessa's room. Just blank. Like the system had glitched or been tampered with. I flagged it for the agency. They told me not to jump to conclusions. But deep down, I already had. The agency sent a rep to support me through the incident. What they really did was pull my access codes and ask for a written report before noon. By the time the sun came up, I wasn't part of the team anymore. No. Thank you for your service. No. Let's get to the bottom of this. Just, we're conducting an internal review. Please refrain from discussing this with anyone outside the company. I was still replaying the 6-minute gap in my head when they changed the locks on the security terminal. They didn't even ask about the footage I'd flagged. 2 days later, Marissa held a press conference. Big glass podium. Black dress. Crying, but in that controlled, rehearsed kind of way. "My daughter is the most important thing in my life," she said, voice breaking just enough to sound human. "We are cooperating fully with investigators. We just want her home." She didn't mention me once. That was when the story started. Quiet rumors leaking into the press. Security officer under review. Negligence may have contributed. Possible breakdown in internal protocol. They didn't name me, but they didn't have to. People in this business know how to read between the lines. I called Rico. He didn't pick up. Later texted me. "Can't talk. Sorry, brother." Eula was gone. Her number disconnected. Even the tutor ghosted me. It was like I'd been erased. I started to wonder if I'd imagined it all. If maybe I'd misread what I saw. Maybe Marissa wasn't watching the feed in real time. Maybe the footage was out of sync. Maybe that smile meant something else. Maybe I was just burned out, paranoid. I took a few sleeping pills one night just to shut my brain up. Didn't help. Then one morning, a man in a gray suit showed up at my apartment building. Said he was with a private legal affairs firm representing the Vellum family. Said I needed to return any and all proprietary footage or system data I may have accessed, or I'd be facing civil charges. No badge. No court order. Just corporate menace, wrapped in a silk tie. I asked him if Tessa was alive. He smiled. That's not something I'm authorized to discuss. That's when I knew I wasn't crazy. But I also knew I was on my own. Once the suit left, I started digging. I wasn't just trying to prove I was right. I needed to know I hadn't failed her. That Tessa wasn't dead. That I hadn't stood 30 feet away while a girl got taken and done nothing. I still had some friends, old favors I never cashed in until now. A retired forensics guy in San Diego. A systems tech I trained 5 years ago. A former agency handler who owed me after I pulled his guy out of a cartel ambush. Quiet calls. No names. No traces. First, I pulled what I could from the backup drive before they could scrub it remotely. Some of the logs were corrupted, too neat to be an accident. The time gap around Tessa's disappearance lined up perfectly with the system blackout. That wasn't a glitch. Someone had overridden the logs. Then I checked the staffing logs. Turns out, the guy working maintenance the week before Tessa vanished? He'd been fired from a different security firm for installing unauthorized network ports. His file had been misfiled. Conveniently. No background recheck. That wasn't oversight. That was a backdoor. One of my contacts managed to recover a deleted camera feed from a separate relay, one not on the official grid. A feed showing the same masked man leading Tessa out the back entrance, and just before the door closes, she looks up at the camera. Not panicked. Not screaming. Blank. Like she already knew what was coming. And then came the worst part. I tracked the make and model of the van they used. It had temporary plates registered to a logistics company, one that turned out to be owned by a shell corporation linked back to Vellum Industries. I sat in my apartment, staring at that shell company listing for what felt like hours. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a cover-up. It was a production. Tessa wasn't kidnapped. She was disappeared. By her own mother. I confronted her. Yeah. I know how that sounds. Suicidal. Reckless. Maybe it was. But I couldn't sit in the dark anymore, knowing what I knew. Watching her parade around on news interviews, playing the grieving mother while her daughter was probably locked in some remote facility like a high-priced prisoner. So I drove to the Vellum house. It was dusk. Front gate recognized my old clearance and let me in. Guess they hadn't fully cleaned me out yet. Marissa was sitting on the patio, sipping wine like it was just another California evening. She didn't look surprised when she saw me. You're trespassing, she said without getting up. You had her taken, I said. You watched it happen. A pause. Just a flicker of something in her eyes. Not guilt. Not fear. Boredom, maybe? Or annoyance, like I was an inconvenient meeting on her calendar. She's in danger, I added, trying to appeal to anything human in her. No, Mr. Mason, she said softly. She was a danger. To herself. To the company. You don't understand what that kind of vulnerability does to people like us. People like us. She stood up then, slow and deliberate. You're lucky I haven't sued you into the ground, she said. You have no idea what kind of reach I have. You show up again, you disappear too. Then she turned her back on me. Just walked inside like I didn't matter. And that was the moment everything inside me flipped. Not from rage. Not even from fear. From certainty. She wasn't bluffing. She hadn't cried for her daughter. Hadn't called me the night Tessa went missing out of concern. She did it for optics. Every move she made was strategic. That's when I knew no one was coming to help that girl. No agency. No court. No press outlet. It had to be me. And if I was going to find her, I'd have to disappear first. I burned every bridge I had left. Quit the lease on my apartment. Ditched my phone. Wiped my socials. Called in one last favor, an old recon buddy who helped me vanish for a while. He owed me his life, and he paid it back in silence. I became a ghost. In the meantime, the story was shifting. The media circus started to die down. No new leads. No new statements. Just a vague sorrow around a troubled teen from a prominent tech family. The public was already moving on. But I hadn't. I rented a room under a fake name in Barstow, of all places. just far enough from LA to be forgotten. I shaved my beard, cut my hair, started walking with a limp I didn't need. I scanned forums, message boards, facility records, rehab centers. Places where rich families send their embarrassments. And then I found it. Not her name, too obvious. But the pattern. A guest, transferred between 2 therapeutic boarding schools in Utah. No photos. Just vague mentions in staff logs. Dates matched. The destination? A private, wellness ranch, deep in the canyon, no cell reception, guarded gate, cash-only visitors. I booked a bus north that same night. On the ride up, I thought about the moment in the footage when Tessa looked up at the camera. Not afraid. Not crying. Just empty. She knew no one was coming. Not even me. The guilt sat in my ribs like a rock. When I got to the ranch, I scoped it from a ridge. Barbed wire. One road in. Staff in khakis, all smiles, all walkie-talkies. One van. No signage. But I recognized the SUV parked near the office, same model Marissa used. Maybe not hers, but close enough to spike my pulse. I stayed in the woods 3 days. I saw her on the second day. Hair shorter. Weight down. But it was her. Carrying a feed bucket like she was part of the staff. No expression. Like her soul had been put on mute. They didn't know I was watching yet. But I was done waiting. On the 4th night, I broke the fence. I waited until 3:12 a.m., when the sky was blackest and the night crew took their smoke break behind the barn. I'd already snipped the wire earlier that day, camouflaged it under brush. Slipped through like I'd done it 100 times before. I wasn't armed. Not in the way people think. Just a flashlight, wire cutters, and an old trauma kit duct taped under my coat. You don't bring a gun into a place like that unless you want to make the news. And I didn't want her name on the news ever again. The sleeping quarters were laid out in rows. Small cabins, numbered. One of the staff logs I pulled online had listed her in cabin 9. I prayed it was still accurate. The air was thin and cold. My breath felt too loud. I moved low, slow. Years of training don't leave you, even when you're pushing 50 and haven't slept in 2 days. Cabin 9 had a light on. I tapped the window. 1 soft knock, then 2. Our old signal. The one I taught her when she was scared to sleep alone. It took a minute. A shape moved behind the curtain. Then a crack of the door. It was her. Hair ragged. Eyes hollow. Face pale. But her. Cal? She whispered, barely audible. I nodded. I thought you forgot me. I didn't. She hesitated. They said I was sick. You're not. They said if I left, bad things would happen. I didn't respond. Just held out my hand. She took it. No alarms. No shouts. No running footsteps. We moved through the dark like ghosts, out the fence, through the trees. I'd stashed a car 2 miles out. We didn't talk until we were inside, windows up, heater on. Her hands were shaking. She said nobody would come for me. I looked at her and said, she was wrong. We drove east, through canyon switchbacks and empty highways. Neither of us saying much. Tessa slept most of the way. Not real sleep, more like the body shutting down from adrenaline. I kept one eye on the road and one on the rearview, waiting for the hammer to drop. I figured they'd notice she was gone by dawn. Maybe sooner. By the time we crossed into Nevada, I tossed the burner phone out the window and switched plates in a truck stop parking lot. She watched me do it without a word. She wasn't scared. She was numb. And I wasn't her savior. I was just the only person left who hadn't sold her out. We got to a safe house in Ely around noon. Belonged to a guy I worked with overseas. Deserted, stocked, quiet. I made sure we weren't followed, ran counter-surveillance for 2 hours, then locked the place down. And that night, I made a choice. I uploaded the footage. Not the full dump, not yet. Just a clip. Just enough. Tessa being led out of the house. Marissa watching from the corner screen. The pause. The smile. I sent it to 6 independent journalists I trusted. No corporate ties. No ad deals with Vellum Industries. People I knew had integrity and, more importantly, nothing left to lose. Then I sat on the floor, back against the wall, shotgun across my lap, and waited. Within 24 hours, it was viral. #WhereIsTessa started trending. Reddit went insane. Half the country thought it was a deep fake. The other half demanded Marissa's arrest. Her PR team released a statement within hours claiming the footage was maliciously edited and illegally obtained. But it was too late. People had seen her face. Had seen the smirk. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. I knew the lawyers would come. The threats. Maybe even something worse. But that didn't matter now. She wasn't in a cage anymore. That was the only thing that did. I thought the hardest part would be getting her out. I was wrong. The hard part is what comes next, when the outrage fades, when the headlines move on, and you're still sitting in a dusty room with papered over windows, listening for footsteps that may or may not come. The footage bought us time. But not freedom. Marissa didn't get arrested. Of course she didn't. Her lawyers buried the conversation in countersuits, injunctions, and media threats. They said I fabricated the video, that Tessa was mentally unstable, that I'd manipulated her into running away. They produced expert analysis, showing signs of editing artifacts. All bullshit, but the public doesn't follow trials, they follow trends. And trends die fast. One journalist who ran the story lost his job 2 weeks later. Another had their laptop stolen and their house broken into. No arrests. I knew it would happen. I told them up front. They ran it anyway. Some people still give a damn. Just not enough to stop the machine. Tessa and I moved twice. First to Idaho, then to a cabin in Montana. No internet. Cash only. Fake names. I cut my hair again. She started sleeping more, eating more. Sometimes she'd draw. One morning I found a sketch of me at the window, shotgun on my lap. Under it she wrote, "Don't blink." She talks a little now. But she flinches at phone rings and footsteps. And when she hears the name, Marissa, she shuts down completely. I filed a statement with a human rights group that investigates forced institutionalization, but they've got a backlog a mile long. I'm not holding my breath. The last time I checked, Marissa was on a panel at a tech conference in Berlin. Talked about AI ethics in a modern world. Got a standing ovation. Meanwhile, her daughter lives like a ghost. And I'm not far behind. I don't know how this ends. Maybe one day Marissa slips. Maybe someone braver, with a bigger platform, picks up the story. Maybe there's enough outrage to crack the shell of power she's wrapped herself in. But I'm not betting on it. We're not the heroes. We're the stains they pretend aren't there. I work odd jobs now, off the books, out of sight. Mostly rural gigs. A neighbor's fence. A vet who needs someone to watch their dogs. I don't use my real name. Tessa uses 3 different ones, depending on the town. She's 17 going on 40. Doesn't ask for much. Likes quiet. Sometimes hums songs I don't recognize while she draws. She's still scared of being found. I don't lie to her about that. I tell her, we're ghosts. But even ghosts know how to run. I dream of the footage sometimes. Not the kidnapping. Not the escape. That smile. The way Marissa watched the screen. Not proud. Not wicked. Just done. Like she checked a box and moved on to the next meeting. Tessa once asked me if I thought her mom ever loved her. I told her the truth. I think your mother loves power. You were just too real. I don't know if that helped. But she didn't ask again. Some nights, I still wait for headlights in the trees. I keep a bag packed by the door. There's a small tunnel dug under the cabin that leads out to the woods. Paranoid? Maybe. But paranoia is what kept her alive. If you're reading this, I'm already gone. And if she's reading this, I hope she knows the truth. I didn't save her. She saved me.